This episode is sponsored by NerdKeys. Support our show using code GamingSanity for a 10% discount.
Hello everybody and welcome to the Gaming Sanity Order 1886 review and discussion. I'm your host Mr. Black alongside Asian Jesus as always, and we have an interesting show for you this week. I've played the Order extensively, it's been panned, and we will give you our thoughts as we speak now. So Matthew, it's been an interesting week. One of the big blockbuster games of the year, exclusive, has been critically panned. Interesting.
Indeed. Before the actual release date came through, it was just absolutely smashed in, and it was quite a shame, really, to sit there and see the news come through. And from your own experience, to be honest, it's quite unnecessary.
Well, we will be able to have a conversation in a moment about my experience with the game. I have to say, yes, I was very surprised at how panned it got. I mean, it's varied wildly. If you look at Metacritic at the moment, there's been 60 reviews of it, and it's got I think it's an average rating of something around 66, 67. And obviously, it ranges wildly from the very bottom is 2 out of 10, and then there's like a 95 at the top. And everything in between. So I think we should get into having a conversation about this. Now, as you know, Matthew, you've been looking forward to it. I have been looking forward to it. It's been visually very impressive. We've seen lots of trailers. I got to play it a few weeks ago. I was quite impressed with the controls. I was impressed with the visuals. Still a bit sort of cautious about what was going to happen. But it seems that obviously it's a bad game. Well, it is and it isn't. I think the best way to begin is we start talking with the visuals, and obviously if you have any questions, please feel free to dive in and ask me anything you want. So I think the best way I can start this is just to talk about visuals. I mean, on a graphical level, technically, it's unbelievable, staggering, really. Lighting effects, unbelievable. Texture work, the likes of which I've never seen before, probably only in Crysis 3 on the PC, and I think even then the fidelity of the textures are probably better on the Order 1886. The fire, I mean, there's one particular level as well where there's a lot of fire going on. It looks unbelievable. The transition from cutscene to game is seamless. There's no loading, there's no juddering, there's nothing, there's no twitching, anything like that. The facial animations are excellent. There's no sort of weird lip syncing or everything. It's actually properly lip synced as well. Some of the effects on the weapons as well, the phosphorus gun when you're shooting the thermite and it sets it all on fire is excellent. And the actual sort of moodiness of London and the feel is bang on, especially for the era. And the sort of obviously the fog and the mist of London, especially when you go down to Whitechapel. And obviously, when you encounter some of the lichens and the big werewolves, you actually get a real-time transformation, very similar to what was seen on, do you remember American Werewolf and stuff back in the day? Similar to that, and it was very, very impressive on a visual level. Now, I'd like to give a shout-out as well to the sound design on the game. The music's very good, strings, and it's a very somber sort of film-like experience. But some of the standouts comes from just the general sound effects and things, like when you're going downstairs, it's not just a generic walking downstairs noise. Stairs actually creak and squeak, depending on where you are. And obviously, because it's set in sort of the 1886, you have these sort of gas light, lighting going on, and you can actually hear it going. You can actually hear it going, burning as you go past. The sound's very subtle. I mean, obviously the guns sound very meaty, and the acting's really good as well. The voice acting's very good. But I was just so impressed when I was going down various staircases, and there were actually squeaks and bumps and things like that going on. And obviously, when you're exploring some of the underground of London, investigating, it's very very sinister. There's lots of sound effects going on. There's no sort of weird jump scares, but there's a very good atmosphere created by sort of wind blowing and things like that. So I was very impressed with those things, like the sound design and graphics. However, unfortunately, there's a couple of things that have sort of bothered me as I've been playing it. The shooting mechanics and everything are all well above average, well above par. It's a cover-based shooter. The weapons are good, meaty. You feel like you're having some impact. But unfortunately, there's some stealth sections in the game, and this is where things start to sort of unravel a bit, I'm afraid.
This is also a very common issue with a lot of games.
Well, the thing is, it's all done on quick-time events. Now, there's a lot of quick-time events in the game when you're playing, sort of when you're doing fights with certain people and things like that. And I can understand that, because obviously it breaks up the cutscene and gives you something to do. But when you're actually using it as a stealth mechanic... Because bear in mind, right, there's one level specifically that stands out. Sort of chapter 10, 11. And you're sneaking around this garden at night time. And it's really pretty, by moonlight, and the rain's coming down, and you've got to go take out these guards. And it's one of those instances where as soon as you're spotted, you're dead. It's an instant fail. There's no leeway whatsoever. And the killing mechanic is not just go up and press the button behind them. You sort of go up, and the triangle button appears, and it like zooms in on the there's like a sort of a circle outside the triangle button, and it zooms in to the triangle button, so you have to press it, and it's just a quick time event. It's ridiculous.
It's just completely changed the quick time.
Yeah, I don't understand why they've done that. I just don't get it on any level of game design. It just makes no sense to me. If you're going to do a stealth... The thing is, right, if they'd have done the stealth mechanics properly, it would have actually added something to the game. And made it better. But they didn't, and they've made it like this bizarre sort of mixture of real time and then quick time event when you're going to... And by the way, as well, you're walking around with a crossbow out, and you have to start walking behind the dude, and then he puts his crossbow away, which takes a few seconds, and then he gets his knife out, and then obviously the quick time event starts happening. So it's very bizarre. Just really weird. But the problem is, because it's a quick time event, it's an instant fail. It starts to break up the pace of the game, and you end up having to restart a lot of things. And sometimes the guys spot you when there's no way they'd see you at all. There's like 3 or 4 times they'd spot you. I can put the footage over this way you can see it. There's no way they'd have seen me, but it was an insta kill. So I was very frustrated with that. I was like, this is a missed opportunity here. And up until that point, I wasn't too fussed about some of the QuickTime events. And to be honest, some of the QuickTime events have been the best implemented use of QuickTime events I've had in a game, right? And I can understand they wanted to make this cinematic experience and so on. But I just didn't get it. It was just absolutely bizarre. Really bizarre. And a very strange choice, and it kind of soured the game for me. Really.
So really, with it technically wise, they pretty much put 2 standard AI without any changes done to the way the AI works.
Well,
and it's meant to be used as stealth.
Quick time event. That's what this is, the stealth mechanics. Because you're sneaking round, okay? You have it. These guys, you're at night time, and these guys have got gas torches, and they can see you. And obviously, they've got set patterns that go around the garden and whatever. But obviously, it changes sometimes as well. But it's just the simple fact that it's a quick time event. There's no margin for error at all, and obviously, because it's a quick time event, you've actually got to wait until the sequence has got to its climax before you can press the button. do you know what I mean? It's really bizarre, and it's just such a strange design choice. It's just weird. All they had to do was just remove this quick time event and just let you press the attack button to get your knife out and just kill the guy. It was just insane. I just couldn't fathom it. Like, what is going on here? This makes no sense. Anyway, so this particular level took me far longer than it should have done to do, just simply because at certain point, like for instance, there was one point where I was following the guy and the triangle prompt had come up, and it was just about to zoom in, and then he just sort of stopped and turned to the left. And because he turned to the left and I wasn't directly behind him, it sacked off the QuickTime event, and then it just turned around and shot me in the face. It's just like, what's going on?
Oh,
just
dear.
no margin for error at all, you know. It just ridiculous. And obviously, I couldn't predict that the AI was going to do that. It just suddenly did it. It was really weird. It completely went out of the pattern that he'd done sort of a number of times before. So it was just really weird. So, marks down for that rubbish. Really, really, really bad programming. Or just lazy. I don't know what we're going on. Don't know what we're going on.
It could have just been a challenge to see how complex they can make something basic become.
It's just idiocy. I don't understand why they've done it. Because they've done, they've got very good solid mechanics, shooting mechanics in there. It's an above average, easily above average third person shooting mechanics. It's accurate. The sort of old Victorian weapons as well, like the sort of M1 Garand type gun and stuff, they have a bit of, kick on them, so you've got to factor in that, which is fine. But it was just these stealth mechanics. I was just like, what is going on here? Why is this even in here? Because I was like, oh yes, we've got a stealth level. This will be good. This will change things up a bit. And it kind of wrecked the pacing of the game. Because one thing I will give them, I think they've got the pacing of the game fairly decent. Because what they have to do, obviously, they're building this world. They're having to set this story up. They're having to introduce all these characters. And what happens is you'll get a level where you're sort of walking around, exploring for a bit, and then there'll be some cutscenes, and then you'll do a bit of fighting, and then sort of there'll be another level where there's a lot more combat, and then it'll go back into like a little bit of exploration and and some other cutscenes. Then maybe you might just get a level of story, and then it'll go into an action sort of level again. And it was quite well paced, at delivering sort of exploration and drinking in the world and allowing the narrative to happen, and then getting some decent combat scenarios going. And then obviously once I saw that we were going to get some stealth level, I was like, oh yes, this will be interesting. Let's see how they do this. And they've just completely ruined it. Ruined the stealth level. Terrible. Absolutely.
It is 50-50 with third person shooter games when they get to a stealth level. Though I mean some games they just shrug it off as if it's some kind of bad joke. So. They go, you're meant to start doing stealth here, but it's just all going to go downhill.
I don't understand why they've made the stealth quick time. Because when you're actually playing the normal, the game normally in combat, you can just press the triangle button and melee people. So I don't understand why they have this weird quick time thing.
I guess it's to add tension or something. It's trying to add things that don't need to be there.
Well, the point is, it doesn't add tension. It just gets annoying if the AI changes its mind on what it's going to do, like it does on a number of times. I've got the video. I'll be able to send it. We can get it on, and people can see what I'm talking about. It's ridiculous, absolutely insane. Now, moving on, the story is very good. Actually, I did enjoy the story. It's there's a bit of controversy about the ending, but I won't talk about that. I'll just let people discover that for themselves. But the story itself is good. It took some twists and turns that I wasn't expecting, because we had a conversation, didn't we, on the last show of, oh yes, it might turn into we're joining the rebels, and it's actually, the Order who are the bad guys. Well, it's not as generic as that, thankfully. And there's some interesting elements, supernatural elements and other things that go on. Mm-hmm. It's interesting as well how they tie in history. Like, for instance, Sherlock Holmes is like the chief commissioner of the police. And there's like, Jack the Ripper. There's a certain twist on Jack the Ripper that's going on. And Nikola Tesla's in there making these new, fancy weapons and stuff. And obviously, way ahead of the time even that we are now, actually, in terms of weapons. And I did enjoy the weapons as well. The thermite gun and... there's like this electric cannon that you have, and there's some good rocket launcher action and stuff, so you can get some good carnage going. The scenery is destructible as well. There's some good levels actually as well. You remember that airship level we saw at the PlayStation Experience? That's quite a good level. That turns out to be quite hilarious.
Okay, that's good then.
Yeah. No, there's some good levels in it. But it does a good job, like I said, of mixing up the levels as well. Because like you'll have one where you go into the underground of London near the beginning to sort of explore what's happening and find out what's going on with these, werewolves and lichens and what's happening. And it's good because it's kind of like it's a break from the shooting, and it's kind of like some of the old Resident Evil games where you're going down with just your torch and you're exploring and you're figuring out what's happening. So it's quite good. It's quite good in that respect. A bit sort of LA noirish almost, you know.
Yeah.
Without the clues, if you know what I mean. It's quite good. Quite good in that respect. And I think overall it's been probably about a 6.5, 7 out of 10 depending. It's not as bad as some people have said. I will say that. Absolutely not as bad as some people have said. But I suppose, again, it's about managing your expectations when you go into something like this. I went into this expecting stellar graphics, a decent third-person shooter with a decent story, and I think that's pretty much what I've got, really, to be honest.
Yeah, I mean, was it probably over the last year and a half, I've just not worried about going in so much with, like, super expectations kind of thing. I mean, like, even going back to Grand Theft Auto 5, like, I had high expectations, but even then I let myself level them out just so I don't get disappointed these days. And it's... You can't sit there and go, this is going to be the best thing ever. There's no point now.
Well, the thing is, it's
the industry's
shooter.
Yeah,
that's what it is essentially, and it all hinges on the story.
Absolutely.
I in terms of comparison, right, the story's a lot better than Gears of War 1. All right, it's essentially the same sort of setup in terms of it's a third-person shooter with a story. But what it doesn't have that Gears of War had, which elevated Gears of War above it, was Gears of War had multiplayer and co-op. I mean, another thing actually I will say as well is the level design is really good on it as well. But because of the cover mechanic, it feels quite organic, does how the game plays. But I don't think they take full advantage of the level design, to be honest, because they've got some really good setups. But I think it's just been slightly restricted by by the cover system, relying on it too much, if you know what I mean.
Yeah.
There's not like some cover, for instance, that's just over waist height, where you can just stand with your gun over it, if you know what I mean. It's either you crouch down behind it, or you hide behind a full wall. Unfortunately, there's not that leeway there, unfortunately, to add extra levels of tactics. But it's there's definitely the one thing I will say: they've built an excellent world. Basically this game is the setup now for what's going to happen. Hopefully, if they do a sequel, and they get some better ideas and get some people to look at what they were actually doing with this and cut out the ridiculous stealth cutscenes and all this other stupidity.
Yeah,
and just nail the game down. You could make a ludicrous sequel to this because the world building is excellent. It's all there.
I mean, despite all the panning, it's still going to get a good amount of return. It's pretty much, it's just like, yeah, it got panned before it even got released, but people are still going off and picking it up. And then there's a few people who have just returned it, following the 7-day return policy on it. So, yeah, it's just, there is still definitely enough money to come back in for there to be a potential sequel. So,
I would recommend people go play it. Absolutely. If you manage your expectations and don't expect something earth-shatteringly, amazingly different. I mean, I think the only third-person shooter I've ever played that was different to everything else was Vanquish. Really.
Yeah.
And that was 4 hours long, 5 hours long.
I mean, I went in there because initially when it came out, I had low expectations on it. But after we did the bloody review of it later on, the Overlooked games, you can see how long it's been since we've done them.
Back in summer, people.
Like after that, I just went, okay, I'll have a look at it, and still went in with reasonably low expectations, but it was a fantastic game for what it was.
Oh, it's ludicrous.
It's fantastic, because I went in there just going, I'm probably not going to be too impressed, but at the same time, I came out of it going, actually, that is definitely well worth the pickup.
Well, the thing is with Vanquish that it's mechanically different to all the other third-person shooters. It's got the cover system, but it's fast and you can slide around, and it adds and obviously it's got slow motion as well, which they all have. But it added those extra elements, didn't it? And this is the thing with the Order. It's got the slow motion. It's got your cover system. It's got some decent weapons. I mean, the shotgun. I've got some hilarious footage with the shotgun that I'm sure everybody will find funny. There's some good killing as well on it. You blow their arms and their heads off and things like that. There's some satisfying killing to be had. And there's some good levels. I mean, there's some destructible stuff. I mean, there's one level where you invade this. I'm not going to ruin who he is. I'm just going to say some posh bloke's house, right? And you're in there, and it's almost like a museum, and you're blowing up all these exhibits, with glass flying everywhere and stuff, and it's very impressive. As I said, visually, it's ridiculous. I've never seen anything quite like it, to be honest. And this is coming from a PC gamer. But there are certain things that hold it back from being truly awesome. But as I've said, it's a third-person shooter that's story-based. How good is it going to be, really? I mean, how much can you reinvent the wheel in a third-person shooter? I don't know.
Well, third-person, you really got to pick it up like it's an interactive movie these days.
Absolutely, yeah. I mean, if you want to, what I would suggest is that maybe not get it at full price when it comes down in price.
Yeah.
Right. Definitely look it up because it's 8 hours long. You can have a few beers, play it on a weekend, shoot some stuff, have a decent story, and forget about it, and then move on. But one thing I will say is the for those trophy hunters out there, there's some trophies there that are based on basically killing and doing some trick shots and other things. So it's. I think I'm going to go back and play it again and do some of them, and play some of my favourite chapters that I enjoyed. Because I have to say, another slight criticism I do have is that they don't give you enough of the cool weapons at certain points due to some of the scenarios that you're in. I mean, obviously they can't just give you all the cool weapons all the time. I wonder if there's a cheat actually for it where I can just run around with the thermite gun and just set everybody on fire, which is hilarious. But I think overall for us, for me personally, on Gaming Sanity, I think it's probably a 6.5 for the Order. It would have been probably a 7 if it wasn't for all that crap stealth stuff. If it had decent stealth mechanics, right, I'd have given it a 7 out of 10. But because of what happened with that, which was terrible, it was just it soured an entire level that could have been really good as well. Because the thing is, right, I think this is probably what some people say about this game. There's a lot of potential there for the future, and looking at some of the mechanics, readdressing things. And I'll say this: if this is how this current generation of console games are going to look, because obviously we're only sort of just a year in now, and something like this has come out. I'm sure everybody's going to
coming out really well.
This. Yeah, well. I'll tell you what, if for the next 4 or 5 years, however these consoles are here, the games look like that, I'm not going to be bothered. You know what I mean? 'Cause it's going to be perfectly fine.
Yeah, I was just going to say, it's like, I mean, you always get that generation gap where you kind of become less attracted to the older graphics from the previous generation. And even now, like, I'm starting to feel it a fair bit. There's a few games I'll happily go back to. But with what's coming out on the new consoles, you really are getting spoiled for choice with graphics.
Oh mate, it's unlike anything I've ever seen. It's certainly something that if friends come round and they've never seen it, or they're wondering about getting a new console, I'll certainly put that on and say, yeah, look at that. Definitely amazing, amazing to look at. And to be honest, I've not been disappointed. The acting, I was fully invested in the story, enjoyed it. It was good. It took some unexpected turns that I wasn't expecting, and not bad. Could have been better though, unfortunately. But I would definitely recommend have a rental, or if you see it, for about 25-30 quid, definitely have a go on it and play it. It's not as bad as everybody says. It's certainly better than 4 out of 10 and 2 out of 10. It's definitely well above average, but it's not great.
Yeah. At least it's still worth a pickup for when I get a PS4.
Oh yeah, mate. Oh, absolutely.
Exactly.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
So,
Oh, no doubt about that. No doubt.
I mean, that will become one of the first pickup games that most people will be getting still.
Yeah,
so
if you get, first get your
they'll be bundled in everything.
Blow your mind when you first play that. Yeah.
Yeah.
It's the subtle detail on the game. I mean, when you watch this video and you see the graphics, this is nothing compared to what it actually looks like on screen, because obviously the visuals will have been compressed. I mean, and obviously it will still look amazing even on the video, but when you actually see it running in the flesh, it's just insane. It is very impressive, very impressive. And obviously on a technical level, there was no hitches of frame rate, nothing. It was just rock solid all the way through. Fantastic. Technically brilliant. And massive shout out to the sound design again. Sound design's amazing on the game. Really good. Good acting as well.
Excellent. And for both of them, both items are very much important. They make or break for a lot of games as well. So
yeah. No,
it gets forgotten quite often.
They nailed some of it, but then some of it's fallen short, I'm afraid.
Yeah.
I mean, I saw one review from Kevin Van Ord on GameSpot, and he said he got bored playing it. I didn't get bored because I was quite intrigued by what was happening, and I felt I was always engaged. You know, even on the sort of slower levels where you were exploring and sort of figuring things out and understanding the plot and finding out further, sort of investigating the mystery. I think if you're somebody who just wants balls to the wall shooting, don't bother.
Yeah,
because that's not what it is. It's about I'd probably say about 30% cutscenes, 70% game, but that game is divided up probably between 55% shooting and then sort of 15% exploration and wandering around and having conversations and investigating stuff as well. So, but I thought it was fairly well balanced and it was reasonably well paced as well.
It's
pretty much like playing a film.
Yeah, no, that's one of the main things third person has really taken on over the last few years. And to be honest, having that balance out, when it's all about just shooting, for me, that's what gets boring. If it's just constant shooting, it drives me up the wall because there's absolutely nothing else there to do. I mean, I'd probably say, okay, I always use Max Payne, it's more of a reference point these days, but although it was mainly shooting at the same time, it still had a bit of balance towards it. Because it was literally trying to be more of a film. It was more of a cinematic experience than just a shooter.
Yeah, if you enjoy Max Payne, you'll love it. Yeah, absolutely.
And I mean, I played Tomb Raider over last weekend, the definitive edition, and that was absolutely brilliant. That was absolutely fantastic because it just constantly split itself up, and that is still very much a third-person shooter. In fact, that was probably the most third-person shooter out of the entire series. I was surprised about the amount of shooting in it compared to previous games.
Yeah.
I was a bit taken aback on that.
Tomb Raider, though? The cover mechanic where she automatically crouches down, you have to press the button.
And it doesn't leave you with the thing that drives you up the wall. Cover mechanics is when you're trying to leave the cover.
Yeah.
Kind of thing. It drives me up the wall because, you're not meant to stand up, but your character will just start standing up all of a sudden, and it's just like, no, you're in a firefight. Why would you leave cover and just stand up all willy-nilly like that? But Tomb Raider was absolutely fantastic, and that's another good example of a third-person shooter. I'd probably say that the actual shooting element on it could have been a bit over the top for what it was. But I mean, you break away from the main story and you go off and do all the puzzles and that. It makes it just 10 times better as a game.
Yeah.
And you need that leveling out.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Definitely. Well, obviously you've got the new one to look forward to. And,
yes, I am very much.
And obviously, if you get your PS4 as well soon, you can have Uncharted 4 and Rise of the Tomb Raider possibly at the end of the year, so you can have an adventure festival.
Yeah, I could have Tomb Raider 3 months beforehand.
Yeah, you'd be loving it. Well, we don't know if Uncharted's going to be out this year. They're aiming for it, but I don't know.
it's going to be big, so even if it doesn't come out, I'm not going to be...
4 may come out. If we don't see it at E3, or we don't hear anything at E3, then I would suspect Uncharted 4 will probably come out in 2016, maybe in May time.
I mean, it was... The alpha that they showed was fairly bloody solid, apart from falling through... initial Fallout glitch that happened. They did that on purpose,
just to show you that it was actually the game.
Excellent. Okay.
It wasn't the joke we thought it was about the Assassin's Creed thing.
Okay, that's actually good then that they actually demonstrated that it was still the game, because I mean it was clear to tell. But yeah, I mean some of the games that come out on the consoles, you have no idea which is which now.
Well, it's just CGI in it, a lot of it.
Yeah.
Now, speaking of CGI, let's move on to the amazing sort of E3 announcement we've had the past couple of weeks. That Bethesda are going to be having their first ever E3 press conference. Now, how exciting is this? So, for the first time ever, we're going to get one of the great development studios of all time rocking up at E3 and having their conference. I think it's the day before E3 actually starts, isn't it? Yeah, it's Sunday the 14th of June. So, predictions. Now they've got an hour. So I think one thing we're going to get, and I think we're going to get guaranteed, okay, is Doom. I think they'll show that. Because they showed that last year at QuakeCon. And obviously that footage still hasn't been released. That's never been released, right? And the other reason I'm thinking this as well is because if you bought Wolfenstein, you get the Doom beta invite, right?
Yeah,
no. And I think it might be one of those situations where they say, yes, here's the Doom footage, oh, and by the way, the beta's just gone live, on PlayStation and Xbox One. You can download it now. I think the second one we'll get, which has been rumoured now for the past 2 E3s, is Dishonored 2. We're going to get to see, right? Because I know Arcade Studios are beavering away on that, and I think almost certainly we will get Fallout 4 unveiled.
I wouldn't be saying that. Don't.
Yeah.
No, don't.
Absolutely. No, absolutely.
I wouldn't be going in with that kind of expectation because
and you know why? And I'll tell you why. Right? I'll tell you why. Because we had this conversation last time where I was talking about if I was Bethesda, I would probably do an Elder Scrolls again before Fallout, simply because it sold more, right? Yeah. However, I've had to change my mind on that because Elder Scrolls Online is coming to consoles, free to play, innit? Basically, you buy the game and that's it.
Yeah.
There's no subscriptions. That's coming to consoles on the 9th of June, right? So there's no way they're going to release that and then say, "Oh yes, we've got the new Elder Scrolls coming."
Well,
right?
Yeah.
That's not gonna happen, right? Now let's remember what happened in 2009 as well, when Fallout 3 was announced at E3. It then came out in that October of that year, right? So it's been what, since 2009, since Fallout 3's come out. Since actually Bethesda worked on a Fallout game, right?
Yeah.
I think you can pretty much guarantee that Fallout 4 is going to be there. I think it's nearly ready to go. Is Fallout? I think
I'm just not going in with the expectation of it, although it all lines up towards it.
Well, think about it, right? They've got an hour.
I haven't finished. I have not finished. You know how big of a fan of the Fallout series I've been, and do not make my pants all creamy.
Listen,
okay? Don't
do the logic.
No,
do the logic.
I can look at the logic.
We know full well they've got Doom, right? They'll show that for definite, and we know they've been working on Dishonored 2. The only other game they could possibly show that's new is Fallout. I refuse to believe that they'll talk about Elder Scrolls Online because it'll have already been out. It'll have been out for 5 days, so they won't talk about that, right? So they've got an hour's conference to fill.
Just saying, don't get me hyped up on this because...
Well, it's true, it's going to happen, mate.
You know how sad I get about it.
You've heard it here first, as well as all our fans. I'm telling you, it's going to happen.
I know it's going to happen. I don't want to get hyped.
Fallout will be out this year, I don't know.
Yeah, I don't ever get hyped with the news. I just don't want to.
It
Okay.
depends.
Just don't.
It depends on the schedule of what's coming out at the end of the year.
Yeah.
It depends. It depends when Metal Gear's coming out, and it depends when Uncharted's coming out, and it depends obviously what we don't know about yet that gets announced at E3. But obviously Fallout has its full fans and everything, so it'll sell well no matter what happens. But
There'll be rioting in the streets if it doesn't get predicted. If it doesn't come out at E3, there will be rioting.
Oh no, it will. They'll show it.
Yeah. And they will joke around with it as bad as Street Fighter 5.
Oh no, I think you know what? I think we'll see some serious Fallout actually in that press conference.
Yeah.
We might get a decent, probably 15 minutes of them actually showing the game. I think they'll show us a fair bit of Doom as well, to get everybody stoked for it, and I think we'll get Dishonored 2 shown as well.
But,
and maybe if they've got something else up their sleeves, I don't know yet. I mean, they may say as well. They might say, yeah, we've got the new Elder Scrolls coming in a year or two. They might even show a little, trailer or something or whatever. We'll see. But it's very exciting that Bethesda are actually... They must have something to show, mate, if they're actually turning up for once with their own press conference.
I wouldn't expect anything from Elder Scrolls, purely because the way they often work is very much that they tend to focus on one of their main projects at a time.
Yeah, absolutely.
So...
I'm expecting the next Elder Scrolls in 2017.
Yeah, that would be quite logical there. I just
can't
can't see them mentioning anything about another Elder Scrolls if they're going to announce Fallout. And they don't really tend to announce what's in the works until after Fallout. Well, after one of their games has been released. So.
And obviously they've got Elder Scrolls Online coming out on the 9th of June, which is 5 days before they do the press conference. So we'll already have that. I'm still on the fence as well to get that yet. I don't know yet. Now, also, another bit of interesting news that we got the other week was Grand Theft sells 45 million copies shipped. I mean, that's just insane. And that's not even including the PC version.
And none of those copies were sold from Kmart or Target in Australia.
Well, the interesting thing was 10 million of that is current gen, PS4 and Xbox One.
Well, it just shows how much more they put in and how much word got out towards a lot of gamers, because there was a fair amount of people that just go, what's the point in buying a new gen version? You go, you play it in first person, it's a completely different game than what you're playing on the older generation. Absolutely. And they listen, and I mean, I had a buddy come over one evening, I put GTA 5 on, and he was absolutely stunned. We were messing around with four-wheel drives out in the countryside, and he had it all in first person, and he literally just goes, okay, when I get a new console, this is what I want to get.
Yeah, absolutely.
It's absolutely brilliant as first person, and that's the biggest selling point.
Yeah.
And it works so well.
Online and hype when they come out, so.
The amount of work that would have gone on first person as well.
Yeah,
like, you can tell the amount of work on it.
Absolutely. Well, I see that going into all their games from now on. I think they'll do it for Red Dead as well.
That would be brilliant.
I think they will.
That would be.
I think they'll do it.
First person horse riding.
Yep. Well, good. You imagine how good it's going to be going into another seedy bars and then just getting your gun out, going into into slow motion, just gunning everybody down. It's going to be literally like a Clint Eastwood film. That's how good it's going to be. It's going to be amazing.
Yeah, jumping on the old trains as well.
Yeah.
I'd love to have a good train shootout.
Because clearly they've got the engine now, right? That's it.
Yeah, it's a fantastic engine.
There it is. It works. Yeah. They've done the proof of concept. So, and obviously a Red Dead game is not going to have the amount of people wandering around and things that a GTA is doing, because obviously there were less people around at that time in the city and whatever. So it's not going to be as crazy unless you have some mass, army invasion, like maybe the Mexican Revolution, Landon Ricketts, pre-Marsden. Obviously not giving any secrets away here or anything.
No. We're very, very
absolutely
quiet.
Tight-lipped on this show. Very tight-lipped. Absolutely. Now the final thing I think we need to talk about is the upcoming Final Fantasy 15 demo. It comes shipped with Final Fantasy Type 0 HD. So we're gonna get. I think it's about a 4-hour demo. We're gonna get. Now, obviously you've seen the Final Fantasy 15 trailers.
Yeah.
Very impressive. Open world. Driving around in a car.
Sports
car.
Sort
of mafia storyline going on and some other crazy mechanics. I like the real-time fighting as well. I'm quite looking forward to this. I'm looking forward to playing this demo. It's been a while since we've had a demo bundled with a game, isn't it? Where they've tried to set, sort of in the vein of Zone of the Enders with the Metal Gear 2 demo and things like that. It's been quite some time, but I have to say I'm very intrigued by this new Final Fantasy. I was slightly disappointed with Final Fantasy 13 because it was just ridiculous and made no sense. The story was terrible, and the first 20 hours of it, you were just sort of playing Final Fantasy in corridors. They sort of rectified it with Final Fantasy X2. And then, obviously, Final Fantasy 13.3 Lightning Returns descended into some sort of bizarre storyline, but it actually put in some sort of semi-real-time combat. So, I think what they're trying to do here is, because obviously Type 0 is a PSP game done up in HD, with actually the most probably serious Final Fantasy story there is, about, war, conflict, people dying, it's actually quite a serious story. It's not your typical emo rubbish. And I think what they're doing as well with Type 0 is they're prepping us for what Final Fantasy 15 is going to be. It's real time now. It's real time fighting, which I think is a good move. What do you think?
Well, personally, it does look like absolute madness from the trailers, which I'm enjoying. But although I'm not really much of a big Final Fantasy fan, so. But yeah, that one was one of the things that really struck me. It's where they've made the changeover with combat. So, yeah, I just don't tend to keep my head in on it, and that's the thing. It's like I think it's just absolutely bizarre watching a bunch of guys with stylish hair. I just found it, stylish hair driving around in a.
No, but I think it's got a combat system and stuff that will appeal to more of a modern audience now.
It is, yeah, I can see that they're trying to branch out and try to get more of the Western audience. Because turn-based can really, really get up people's noses. I'll tolerate it with some games, and then there's some games where I don't really want anything to do with it. Yeah, it's just like it's a big pull out, but at the same time, for me, it would probably be it's just like there has been so many games in line anyway. I don't really see why I should be trying to get into this bizarre world in the first place at this time.
Well, the thing is, they're all standalone games, you see, so you don't have to. So
yeah,
you're all right. The beauty of it is it's real-time combat. That's the key, people. Real-time combat and killing massive dinosaurs. That's what I want to do. You see, well, the way I look at it, it's kind of like
I got Shadow of Colossus
Monster
still.
Hunter meets Monster Hunter meets Final Fantasy with some sort of crazy mafia storyline going on and a car. So it's looking good. But I'm very intrigued. We will be reporting back, obviously, with the demo when I've got my grubby mitts on it in just over a month. So it's going to be interesting. So, well, I think we can wrap that up for this week. Now, so just remember, people, the Order 1886 is maybe not as bad as everybody says it is. Just go in with expectations managed, but Gaming Sanity gives it a 6.5 out of 10. So it's goodbye from me.
And goodbye from me.